Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at a Harman Kardon HK3270. This receiver is from one of my customers. Actually going to be working on some realistic Nova 8s for him as well. I'll be making a separate video for that. Wants me to go through everything, make sure everything's going to be up to par for his usage case. I've actually pulled up some specs on this. So this little receiver here has a continuous average power. This is by the FTC rating. There's 65 watts at 8 ohms and 95 watts at 4 ohms. So if you got 8 ohm speakers, you're going to be seeing 65 watts per channel. If you have 4 ohm speakers, you'll be seeing 95 watts per channel. Your signal to noise ratio is 95 decibels. So some interesting stuff about the power draw. So if the power you're going to use from your wall, you're going to be using 72 watts at idle and 332 watts at maximum. So that's driving both channels at maximum. You're going to be pulling 332 watts from the wall. Some measurements for you. The width is 17.4 inches. The height is 6.1 inches. Your depth is 16.3 inches. Now the depth does include the knobs, so that's good to see. And this thing weighs a hefty 24.6 pounds. So what we're going to do first is we'll pop the lid off of this. We're going to take a look into the internals before we ever try to put any power or anything. We're going to give everything a once over just to make sure there's no blown capacitors or any other damage that we can see physically. All right, we've got the screws out. You're going to be lifting and pulling towards yourself with the faceplate away from you. Be careful, the metal top can stick pretty good in the behind this faceplate, so you don't really just want to rip things around. Just work it out and be safe. All right, we've set up a second angle for you here. We'll get this thing blown out. We'll go over it, just a nice visual look, and see if there's anything that sticks out, and then we'll move on from there. So just initial look inside, it's actually really clean. There wasn't hardly as much dust as I usually see in these older equipment. That's really fantastic to see. So it looks like it's been well kept. So after a quick look through, I don't see anything major. I don't see anything actually wrong at all right now. It's got a really big heat sink, which is nice to see. There's no blown fuses, no capacitors are blown, they're not swollen, there's no leaking that I see. So let's move on to getting this thing powered up. And for that, we're going to need a special tool. This is the dim bulb tester that I have made myself. 3D printed a little box for it, just an old ceiling light fixture, a light bulb, and I've included a power switch inside of it. So let's get this plugged up and I'll show you how it works. So currently the dim bulb tester is plugged up. I have an on-off switch. If I turn it on, nothing happens. So the way this is wired in, you have power, just use a lamp cord. Power comes in, one side of the power cable goes through the switch into the light bulb, and the other side goes through this socket into the light bulb. So I have to connect the power to whatever it is I'm trying to do into the socket, and that will complete the circuit. So that's how this dim bulb tester works at a very high level. Inside, you just got to think of making a circuit, and you have two areas where the circuit is broken. One is the switch, so the switch will make or break the circuit, and the other is the plug, which is also technically a make or break. It's just you make it or break it by plugging something in. It can take 3-prong power, but it's not going to give that live earth ground. So let's get this plugged in. All right, so before we go throwing power, let me give you an overview of what I'm doing with this. So a dim bulb tester is a visual indicator for me that if I have a ground short within this system, I basically turn, in this case, a 100-watt light bulb into a fuse that I can see. So when I turn power on, even with this power is off by the console, if there is a short that's causing an issue there, this will start to glow really bright. And I can turn the power right back off before anything gets damaged. If everything's there good, I should not see any light when I turn the power on here until I turn the console power on, or in this case, the receiver. When I turn the receiver power on, I will get a slight spike because it initially draws power, but it should not continue to get bright. If it continues to get bright, throw the power switch off at the dim bulb tester, you kill all power to the circuitry, and you save any sensitive components. So, let's see how it goes. Initially, nothing powered on here. We're going to turn this on and see if we get any light. So, good news. No light here. Nothing to worry about at that point. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to find what button to push, and I'm going to keep my hand over here so that I can quickly turn it off if we need to. So the power switch is here. I'm going to keep my other hand ready to throw it off, and I guess this camera will pick up any sparks or explosions if that happens. Let's hope that this coil doesn't go boom boom. It won't. Well, that was a bit anticlimactic. I turned it on and nothing happened. Looks like there's multiple ways of turning this on. There's an off. This button here says off. So if I push that in, it should be on. Nothing happens. Right below it is another button, and there's a power. The word power is in between them. So maybe you got to push this button and then hit the power button. I don't know. Let's find out. Okay, so you can't see this. I don't know that we'll be able to see it in this either. Yeah, there we go. So it's very, very, very faintly glowing. So it's a dim bulb. So what this is now telling us, the console has power. It's drawing normal wattage, so to speak. It doesn't have any issues with short to ground. It's a bit dim. You can maybe make out a little bit of the display. It's not a very bright display. It's crisp. It looks good. I'm going to grab a test speaker, one that I use when testing in case it does go pop. It'd be okay. And we'll get this hooked up and see if it makes sound. All right, we've queued up good old crab rave. Let's see if this is going to play some music. One thing I am going to have to look into, there's a little crackle and a little pop that I'm hearing. Very well could be the speaker I'm using, but we're going to try some of the other lines. So that's speaker A system. See if I can find the button right. We'll speak the speaker 2 or B, AB. Alright, so I've now tested all 4 channels. They all 4 have the exact same characteristics that I'm hearing out of the speaker with the crackle and the pop at basically the same time. So it's definitely going to be a speaker issue, but we're still going to make sure that this thing is top notch. So with that out of the way, we can move on to just making sure that the volume pot and the switches are nice and clean and we're not getting our scratchy and poppy sounds that I'm hearing from that. In order to look at the buttons and the knobs, we're gonna have to take this faceplate at least down. We might not have to take it all the way off as far as separating from PCB boards, but we are gonna have to remove a screw here, 2 screws on the side, and also 2 screws underneath. The 2 screws on the side and the 1 screw on the top are gold in color on my unit. The 4 screws on the bottom are black in color in my unit. The front faceplate sits around this frame, and on the bottom it sits in between the feet and the frame. You do not have to remove the feet to remove the faceplate, but we will have to disconnect some wires to be able to get the faceplate off and give us enough room to work. First wire being the power wire, the on-off switch power wire. This wire has a lock mechanism, so you need to press that mechanism and pull off of the header. So just know that, you just can't yank it off. There will be some zip ties that you need to cut and some other wires that we need to remove, so we can get into that. But make sure you do have some replacement zip ties to put everything back together nicely and neatly, and a good pair of flush mount cutters. One tip, if you are concerned about not remembering where zip ties or wires went, take pictures. Be careful not to cut wires. If you cut wires, some of these older vintage receivers, maybe not so much with kind of black face and newer, the silver face units, some of those components inside are not made anymore. Wire you can pretty much fix, but if it gets into like a ribbon cable, it's going to be a lot harder to repair. So for this particular unit, I've actually had to do quite a bit of separating. So we've cut 4 zip ties. We're going to disconnect the ribbon cable from the main board. We're going to disconnect some wiring harness from the main board, and anything that kind of goes to the main panel that we can reach and disconnect from the main board, we will. If we can't get some of the stuff, if maybe it's hardwired, we might have to disconnect it from the panel. One blue and the rest are black cables. This connector will have to come off. So a good example is these 2 black wires and the red wire are going underneath, back on the back side of this. This is going to be where your main channel amps are, because you have these big heat spreaders. It has the locking mechanism connector, so squeeze it down, pull it off gently. The other wires connected here are 3 black wires and 1 orange wire. It runs over to the main board here. So there is actually another zip tie we need to cut. Another lock header, connector for the header. Squeeze and pull off gently. So now the left side of the control panel minus the ground wire is fully released. So let's remove this ground. On the right side, we have this ribbon cable. We're going to try and leave the ribbon cable connected. My hope is that we'll be able to swing the display panel around and work on it here to the side without removing this. It's not going to hurt anything if we remove it, but I don't really care much for these types of ribbon cables when we're trying to work with older equipment, because if there is an issue, if it gets ripped or anything, they're really, really hard to find sometimes. So the right side ground we're going to leave because we're just going to try and swing this around. So let's see what our spacing is going to look like. So again, the faceplate is underneath the 2 feet on the bottom, but you don't have to remove the feet to get the faceplate off. Just grab both sides and gently work it back and forth. Be careful, the main knob has a very large protrusion for PCB boards. Feed everything through. Get the other camera out of the way. Be gentle, be slow. So the ribbon cable actually goes in and behind the PCB board and mounts up. So that does concern slightly from being able to have enough room. We have some access. It's not the greatest. The biggest issue that I see is getting to some of these other areas is it looks like it's all PCB mounted. So basically, if it's going to be a PCB mounted switch, all right, so this kind of switches I'm talking about. If it is a switch like this, that's not going to introduce the scratchy and popping that I'm hearing. This is a PCB mounted switch, and there's no cleaning that we can really do with that. So we'll inspect that and see if that's the case and go from there. Okay, so all of the buttons up front are a PCB mounted switch, so there's no cleaning that we can do with those, and I don't believe that those are what would be causing the scratching or popping. I still believe it's just in the speaker I have. I'm going to try different speakers, but it's a good thing to just go through and check anyway. So interestingly enough, the only knobs or buttons that I could clean are the bass, treble, and fade. The knob is a enclosed style system, and the wire that goes into it is for the light. There's a wire that attaches to the knob and turns with it just so you can have your LED light. So with this system, there's only 3 things that we can clean. So we know carbon buildup's not an issue that we're dealing with what we were hearing. So we've inspected everything, give everything a look over, so now we can reassemble. We'll put some of our zip ties back as we go. Give everything a good once over once you have everything hooked back up. Just make sure you double check that you've got everything hooked up. Then we can screw our faceplate back in. All right, so with that, we've kind of gone through this. Everything checks out, everything works. When I get through the speakers, we'll bring this back with both speakers just to make sure that we have any kind of additional popping going on. Before we do his speakers though, I am going to get one of mine and just double check that it was this speaker that I'm getting those results from. So here's another test speaker that I use. I have better speakers, we'll get to those, but I'm not going to put a good speaker up to a unknown console until we know. Don't damage your speakers. I have put that other speaker through quite a bit over the course of time that I've been doing this, so it's not unexpected that it might have some issues. I'm still going to use the dim bulb tester in this instance because we did unplug and replug in wires. So you notice bright and then comes all the way back down to just a glow. We gotta change speakers. So I'm already not hearing what I was. So that does help confirm that it was that speaker. I probably need to retire that speaker. This is a Bose Model 141, and it's rated from 4 to 8 ohms max. So that's exactly what's going on here. Oh yeah. So this Harman Kardon is going to be a good receiver for my customer in his usage case. I'm looking forward to getting this back to him. Look for the video for these Nova 8s. That's going to be an interesting one. We're going to pop them open. We're going to go inside. We're going to check the crossover. We're going to check the coils. We're going to do it all. If there's anything bad, we will replace it. We will fix it. There is absolutely nothing that we need to replace on this. This thing is immaculate inside. It's super, super clean. I'm very impressed by this. Whoever had this took very, very good care of it. So I'm going to get the top put back on this, and we'll wrap this episode up for this Harman Kardon HK3270. So putting this back on, just be careful getting this down. And remember, it's got to go in between this landing and the faceplate. Just work it in there, seat it, and everything's good. Always. It looks good on in the video, but it does interrupt sometimes when it wants to go and autoplay something. We'll get this set off to the side. We'll dig into these other speakers. No, we won't. You got to put all the screws back in. Like we said, we'll set this to the side. We're going to go through those realistic Nova 8s. Then we'll bring it all back. Have everything up here on the station for you. Give it a good playthrough. We'll get this thing back to the customer.